Hey, this is Pete from 21st Century Prepper. Today's podcast, we are going to be talking about freeze drying. It's a topic that I've been interested in, and a lot of people are interested in, but then you kind of hear the expense of it, and it kind of scares people. But I think we're going to solve a lot of those questions and problems that people have with it tonight. We have quite a few, I'm not going to call them experts, because no one's an expert, but we got some people with some experience. So tonight with me is Skip.
Good evening. Evening, everyone.
And then we have Sheila.
Hey, folks.
And Michelle.
Hello.
And Kim.
Hi.
And Kim, you have a freeze drying page. What's that?
I do.
On Facebook?
Yep, I do. It's called Harvest Right Freeze Drying Adventures, and we're not a sales page. We're not selling you anything. We're just sharing our experiences in freeze drying, and we also have giveaways every month. You might come on and get free trays for the freeze dryer, or a free pump for the freeze dryer, free freeze dried food, pressure canner. We give away all kinds of cool stuff on there.
Okay.
But most importantly, we educate people.
Yep. That's the biggest thing. Okay. First off, it comes down to, is it worth it? I mean, they cost a little bit of money. Do you, how can you convince people that it's worth it? When we start out there, and then we'll go from there. We'll dive right in and bam.
Do you mind if I jump in on this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because this is probably the best information I have for you. Just recently, I posted on 21st Century about chicken soup I'm making.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I make, I grow on my own property, so the cost of the product is very cheap. I freeze-dried a concentrated chicken soup, which would be 12 gallons when reconstituted. It would take 2 runs. I have 2 machines, so I did it in one go, but it would take 2 runs on the machine. The cost breakdown for what I produce, because it's my own raised chickens, 4 chickens, $16, $9 worth of bouillon, $9 worth of packaging, $8.64 worth of electric. And I based this on, I have a kilowatt meter on my machine. It was 36 kilowatts. Apparently the national average right now is 12 cents according to Google per kilowatt hour, although I thought that was kind of low. My total price for 12 gallons of chicken soup is $42.64. If you were to buy Mountain House in number 10 cans, you would have to buy 16 cans. On Amazon, that's $432.
So definitely worth it.
If you wanted to do nothing but make homemade chicken soup from your own products, it would take about 2 months to pay for all your equipment and packaging.
Wow.
Of course, nobody wants to make that much chicken soup, but
it's a lot of chicken soup. But wow, that's great that you had those numbers for us. That breaks it down. And my issue is, would I use it enough? You know, that's where I would be like, hey, get this, do a couple, and then it'd be like, you know, and would I use it enough? That's what's holding me back from not getting one right now. Is I don't know if I would use it.
Okay, you mind if I jump in here?
Sure.
It's addicting. I can't walk through a store or a farm stand without looking at stuff saying, ooh, I can freeze dry that, and I can freeze dry that, and I can freeze dry that. Once you get past all the silly stuff, if you're like me in the beginning and try to freeze dry, my cat and dogs won't go near the freeze dryer. They're afraid I'll put them in. Actually, I'm lying. My one dog sits by the freeze dryer praying I drop something because he was everything freeze dried. It's addicting. Everything in your life becomes freeze drying. It's fun. It's an experiment. And I want to add to the cost thing. There's no waste. So the average family throws away $3,000 in leftovers a year. $3,000.
Yeah.
freeze dryer costs $3,000. And I do what we call toss trays, where you have that little bit of green beans left over from dinner, or you have those 2 slices of pizza or whatever. I just freeze them, and then I do these remarkably odd trays full of bits and pieces, and they become future meals or lunches at work or whatever. Very few people on the page, and we're growing pretty quick, stop freeze drying once they start. If anything, lots are buying more freeze dryers. And money, you're also saving. I have chicken now I freeze dried 6 years ago. I paid probably 99 cents for that chicken. Chicken today here is on average, $2 a pound.
Mm-hmm.
So long term, you're saving money as well.
True. Yeah, if you buy it now, or able to get a big bulk deal from someplace.
Yeah, all the time we get them, and we have people who say, "Well, I can't afford it." They have an interest-free layaway, and it's pay as you can, interest-free. So however much you can put up a month and pay, they'll take it. And when you get to, you can at half paid off, they will send you the machine, and then they ask you to finish paying it off in a year. But if you want to take 3 years and pay it off, $50 here, $25 there, they do that as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's cool to know. Yeah, Lisa, who was going to join us, but hasn't joined up yet, she does leftovers. She says she does leftovers all the time. And she also made a big batch of, what did she make a big batch of the other day? Chili or something? I saw it. Yeah, she made. So I know I would do that.
I never cook a batch for one, and my kids have all moved out. So, the other thing is coming home from work and I'm too tired to cook, I grab a bag of freeze-dried stuff. So.
Now, can we talk about reconstituting and how you know how much water to add to your? You said slices of pizza. That intrigued me. So how do you know how to bring your slice of pizza back to life?
So lots of experimenting, but in that case, what I did was I did the same thing with we did pound cake and lasagna and all kinds of things that you don't want to just necessarily pour water on. So what I do is I take a wet paper towel and I wrap the pizza in it, and then I take the pizza and I put it in a plastic bag, Ziploc, and I toss it in the fridge for a couple hours or overnight, and then the next day I just heat it up, and you would never know the difference.
Very cool.
Huh.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Okay. What are the basic components of a unit? What all do you need?
I bought the larger unit, and the first thing that really surprised me, which they didn't tell me, was I needed a different plug, a 220 versus a 110. So after I got my machine and I was very excited, I realized a little late that I needed to change my plug out. But it was no big deal. My husband went the next day, went to the hardware store, come home, did it himself, and I was good to go.
They don't have the 20 anymore. They're all 110 now.
Is there? Okay, good to know.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good.
110.
Yeah, I think that would scare some people, especially if they're renters or something. They wouldn't. So, what are the parts of a freeze dryer?
So joining this podcast, I think I gave full disclosure that I'm so not technical that I would have trouble answering the phone, but they're actually easy. There's a couple of circuit boards. You've got a freezing drum and a vacuum pump. There's a touchpad on the front. They're so easy to deal with. Mine, I have an older unit. I've had it for quite a while. I had condensation drip on and wrecked the circuit boards. Harvest Right sent me the entire electrical components and computer components, and I replaced them in about 20 minutes.
Okay.
So if you don't mind me butting in there,
it's quite simple.
That was an older version, and in the beginning there were those moisture problems. There were some problems with the pump. And we're talking back years now. I've had mine 6 at least. Those have all been resolved since then. There's no more moisture on the electronics. As they've gotten smarter, one, they supported their customers, like you said, and two, the newer generations don't have those issues anymore.
Okay.
So,
And for mine, after I replaced the components, they gave me a little piece of pink plastic film that covered it, and I've never had a problem since.
yeah, they now come ready to go. So, watching the evolution of the machine has been fascinating. It's like you said. When it comes to the house, you're going to get the big freeze dryer. Think like a dorm fridge, and you're going to get one of two pumps. It's your call. You can get the new oil pump, and you have to change the oil out between batches to keep it clean. And then you filter it, so it's not expensive. You don't have to keep buying oil. Or you can buy the new dry pump. Now, the dry pump is a little bit more expensive, but there's no oil changes. The dry pump has literally made this plug and play. There's no changing oil. There's no maintenance on it. I've had mine over a year, and the only issue I ever saw with it was once in a while it gets a little water in it, so I have to run it by itself for 3 or 4 minutes, and it's back up and running. So a lot of people are afraid to buy because of all the horror stories they hear. Those are pretty much gone now because they've made all these upgrades.
Okay. So there's a small and a large, or is that what? There are two different sizes generally for home?
Three sizes.
Three sizes?
Small,
So
medium,
what's
large. Yep.
what's the difference between the each one of them? I mean, what's a small consist of? How much can you do at a time? Or,
7.5 pounds on a small, give or take, 10 on the medium, and I don't have the large. I think it's 15 I think when
That's correct.
So 15 pounds. So
And
that's so much.
I know personally I have pushed that. I have the medium. I have pushed that 10-pound limit a lot. And as long as you don't have so much moisture that the ice on the drum, invades your trays, add a little extra time on the freezing and a little extra time on the final vacuum, and it works out.
Okay.
There's a learning curve. There really is.
I'm sure there is.
Curve.
Yeah.
And like she said, it's for reconstituting. It's experimental. You kind of have to do it by taste. Like, for instance, I'm a milk drinker, so I have done loads and loads of milk, and that just takes a minute or two. You just add water a little bit at a time until it's to the right taste, the right consistency. So that's all the other foods too. It's just a little learning curve, but it's nothing that the average person cannot comprehend.
I joke. Somebody asked me how I do tomato powder. So I take fresh tomatoes from our garden and I freeze dry them and I powder it, and then I make tomato paste and I make tomato sauce. And keep in mind, it's never been cooked, so it's as fresh as the day I picked it. And someone said, "Well, how do you know how much to put in for paste?" And I said, I slowly add cold water and mix until I go, "Oh, look, paste," and then I'm done. And then I go, "Look, a little bit more water. Ooh, look, sauce. I'm done."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense. And then if it's stuff, I'm looking at the questions right now, and there's a picture. One of the members, Pam, put up a picture of celery, and obviously, if you're cooking a stew or a soup or something, and you have freeze-dried celery, you just chuck it in the soup, and you're good to go.
Yep.
I think that's where the majority of ours would be freeze-drying parts of meals, and then add it later.
why not just do the whole meal? Why not just make the soup and freeze dry it?
We could, I suppose. I don't have one right now, so maybe I would. That's just what I'm thinking. That's off the top of my head what I'm thinking. So.
I do some ingredients for breakfast, like make an omelet or something. But most of my stuff, chilies, stews, soups, casseroles, lasagna, they're done. They're cooked. I just add hot water and eat.
I started it from that theory also because I got into this because I hike so much and I wanted to be able to freeze dry my own meals that I want. You get sick of turkey tetrazzini after a while. So all I ever did in the beginning was meals. But you butcher a cow and we have, 300 pounds of hamburger. it is wonderful to have, I brown hamburger and have taco meat in a canning jar, and when I want to have nachos, there it is. You don't have to go through thawing it out, cooking it, adding the spice. You just throw a little water on it, and you have nachos.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do both.
Absolutely. We do shrimp, we do fish, we do steak.
And that's a really good point you said about hiking. My family, we camp all the time. We take the grandchildren, and we have completely gone from, okay, are we taking steaks? Are we doing this? I mean, we have reduced our cooler use to hardly nothing. That's strictly there for ice, for drinks, because we do everything freeze dried. You're camping, you open a thing of soup, pour it in a pot, and 15 minutes later you have soup for everybody. Same with chili or whatever it is. We just have really, really utilized that with camping. That's what we do. When we go on vacations, if we're going to go camping for a week or whatever, we just stock up with go in our little pantry. What do we want? It's not, okay, we got to get ice for this, and we have to keep this cold, and nope, none of that. That's all a thing of the past.
That's a good way to look at it.
We have one container of food that every time I do a meal, one bag I don't mark, and I put it in a, I don't know, what do you want bucket. That's what we call it. Because we'll come home from work, and I'll say, what do you want for dinner? I don't know, what do you want? I don't know, what do you want? So we just go upstairs and grab an I don't know meal, and whatever it is, it's dinner.
That's every damn night, I tell you that much.
A lot of fun with
It's every night in this house.
Yep.
So, okay, let's get to a couple of these questions here. The big one here, other than the cost one, is it looks like people want to try to make a homemade one. Do you think making a homemade one is even doable?
No.
Well, actually, I think there's instructions on how to do that. Make one on YouTube.
There are.
It seems like, okay. I don't know how that would. I'm not mechanical, so I guess anything's possible.
You could do. So you could. I don't want to say freeze dry, because what they're doing is really kind of freezer burning the
Freezer
food.
burning, right?
Yeah, it's a really small amount, and it would be great for like a science project with Girl Scouts, or the people who like to geek out. But if you're seriously looking to prepare food for long-term storage, that's not the way to go. It's not economical. The food would never last 25 years.
I also don't believe you're actually going to get it dry enough that you're going to feel safe sealing it in a Mylar bag.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it sounds like it's got, what's it get to, like -40 or something like that?
50 on average.
-50? That's a lot colder than the average freezer, And then the vacuum, I don't know any specifics on what kind of vacuum it pulls, but I don't know if that's really doable. But people, I suppose, people can try it if they've got a knack for doing things. Give it a try, and
and a pump.
if it works, hopefully it all works for you. But overall, you'd say don't even try it, or
like I said, for a fun science.
I don't think the machines are complicated, but I think everything has to seal perfectly. The doors have to be, they have very good rubber seals on it. Everything has to be tight. If you're a machinist and you're really good at this kind of thing, I think maybe 1% of the population could maybe do it, but for your average person, I would say no way.
I think it's more.
For me, I definitely no way.
I agree. You have to have a really sealed compartment and stuff for the vacuum, because if you have any leakage at all, you're not going to pull a vacuum. But the other thing to take into consideration is the algorithms and the software they use, that not only pull the vacuum and keep the cycling of the heat and everything correct, but also sense when the food is at a certain temperature and how dry it is, and then they go into the final phase. Freeze drying is 3 phases. It's 9 hours of freeze, gets the food down to minus 50 degrees Celsius, and then it goes into what's called middle dry. And this starts at 30 hours, but it rarely lasts that long. And what's happening during that 30 hours is that vacuum is so slowly sublimating or pulling the moisture out of your food, and an ice ring starts inside the drum around the food. And when the machine senses you're at 80% dry, it might be 10 hours in, it might be the full 90 or 30, it depends on how wet the food is. It will kick into your final dry of 7. So an average run on a freeze dryer, they say 24 on the low side, but I've rarely seen that. It's up around 35, 40 hours for a batch of food is, I find, average. Do you ladies agree with that?
Yeah.
Mine are usually longer, but as I said, I always overfill it, so.
And would it depend on what you're doing? Depending
Yes.
on what the moisture amount is in what you're doing?
But if I put ice cream sandwiches in, they'll take around 24 hours. If I put 4 trays of soup in, they'll take 40.
Okay, yeah. How do you have ice cream sandwiches to freeze dry? I eat them too quickly.
I actually put one on my desk the other day, just a freeze-dried one, and left it there to watch people's reaction. And people were walking by going, why isn't that melting? Is that real? So
I can sit down and eat like 5 of those things at a time, so I don't know if those would last that long.
It messes with your brain.
Okay, so the homemade freeze dryer. They possibly could get it cold enough. They could possibly get enough vacuum on it, but the censoring of the food would probably be the most difficult part of it, and I doubt anybody would have that kind of tech to do that. So I'm going to say, don't try it, people. Just get it, invest in one. Okay, Sheila kind of answered this one already in the questions, but person asked if food has to be cooked first, and you can freeze dry raw stuff, correct?
That is correct. But raw food's raw food. To me, I don't do raw food like that. I'm just thinking of chicken. Think how much you cross-contaminate by handling chicken, and I just don't want that in my machine to cook at a later date. And to me, that's almost defeating my purpose. I want to open the package and constitute it, reconstitute it, and then eat it. If you freeze dry it raw, when you open the package and reconstitute it, you have to cook it. So to me, that's defeating my purpose of that. Mm-hmm. But yes, you can do anything raw, meat-wise. You just have to cook it when you reconstitute it.
Okay, then let's see here. That one's a little too long, so that one kind of what we're doing. He kind of asked what the whole concept was about.
I believe one of the questions I looked over earlier was, people really don't. They have that question as to if it's worth it, the cost. To me, it was my machine delivered was $2,800. I bought the largest one they had. In the year that I've had it, I probably have put up 2 years worth of food. And that's not really going out of my way to try to do as much as I can, But, I can make the packages as small as I want. I can make them as large as I want. I have a large family. When they come over, it's 10, 12 people. That, to me, is just, to me, I don't see the question as to, is it worth it? But I guess it depends on what your beliefs are or what you're doing it for. And we talked price a little earlier. Example, yesterday I bought a bushel of okra. What was it, Mark? $49 for a bushel? $39. But last year, I know for a fact that same bushel was probably $8 to $10 cheaper. Well, my thought is, okay, next year it's going to be that much more expensive. And the
Mhm.
year after that, every year it's going up. So I can't see my money, my investment going bad, because now just that bushel of okra for my family and myself, I've got that for the next year or more to eat that food at that cost.
Mhm.
So I figure anything I'm putting up right now, I'm doing it at a cheaper price than I can get next year or 3 months from now or in the future. I just think it's a money saving thing. No matter what you put up, everything will be more expensive next year.
And also doing it in season. So we just put up ton o' corn. The corn was right out of the field, blanched, cut, and freeze dried. And if I were to try and buy corn in December, or the peaches I just put up, if I wanted to get those in December, I'm not going to get good corn or good peaches, and it's going to be really expensive. So buying in season, buying on sale, bartering, I barter time in. Somebody will give me, 10 pounds of venison, and I get to keep half, and they get half of theirs freeze dried and packaged. So you can make your money back on it as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Another thought on these. My first one I bought was very expensive. I bought them before the prices came down. But my second one, I was on a Harvest Right freeze drying Facebook page. I'm not even certain the name of the actual name of it, but I'm sure people can search it. I bought a used one. It had only been used a couple of times for $1,500, including the pump and 4 gallons of oil, the sealer, and a box of bags. So, and it was delivered, the person happened to be a truck driver, and he delivered it to my house. So no delivery fee, $1,500, an almost new machine with everything you need. You don't get instant gratification. You can't just say, I want this one and I want this color and I want it tomorrow. But it is worth following some of the pages, and they do come up for sale at good bargain prices occasionally.
Mhm.
Harvest Right also does a scratch and dent sale too, so you can always call Harvest Right and ask them, do they have any used ones for sale?
Oh, okay, that's cool. I suppose a couple scratches is kind of, or whatever, or a dent or a ding in the corner, and
Happens.
it still works, and so who cares?
Right.
Let's not trash it. Let's sell it to someone and they can use it. So, okay. Back to the sizes. How many trays in a small to a large? What you said, 7.5 pounds for a small and 15.
Three trays, 4 trays, 5 trays.
Okay. And this is kind of an idiot question. Do you need to have something in every tray? Can you do one tray at a time if you only have a little bit of food?
You could, but I think that would be a waste of energy.
Okay.
You know that milk in your refrigerator that's getting a little long in the tooth, or those eggs that have been in there for a while, or you'd be surprised how creative
Just
you go.
do something.
Yeah, you'd be. I've searched through my house. What can I freeze dry? What can
Is there anything in the couch?
Yeah, right. Don't finish that dinner, honey. I need to freeze dry that.
Okay.
But that's the good thing of it. You can always freeze whatever it is that you only have one tray of, and wait till you have a full 5 trays or 3 or 4, whichever. So it's not like,
True,
okay,
you can
I
throw it
have
in-
this and I have to do it right now. No, you can freeze that and it can sit and wait for you.
Okay.
Peaches were so awesome because you buy a bushel of peaches, and we all know when you buy a bushel of peaches, they don't become ripe at the same time. So as 3 or 4 would become ripe, I'd cut them and throw them on the tray. So by the time I was ready to put in the freeze dryer, because I have extra trays, I had 10 pounds of perfectly ripe peaches to freeze dry.
Okay. Now here's another stupid question. If you stick stuff in the freezer, can you throw it right in the freeze dryer and continue and then start the freezing process that way too, or does it have to be thawed out before you put it in there?
Thawed, freeze. You can pre-freeze or not. It's up to you. The machine will be just the same.
It doesn't matter. Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Let's see. Skip, you got anything?
No, not right off the top of my head. Yeah, no.
You're still awake, right?
Yeah, I'm awake.
Skip gets up awfully early in the morning to go to work. So, let's see.
Well, let me give a shout out to Harvest Right, and I'll explain. I had my freezer 6 months, and something went wrong with it. I would go to it, and it had standing water in the drum. I called them. They were, nowadays we all have rights, but most of the time you have to really fight for your right. So by the time I called Harvest Right, I was ready for a fight. I just knew somehow I was not going to be satisfied. These people were genuinely on top of it. I called them. We did a little test run. I sent some information to them. It has a USB port on the side. I got a little stick, memory stick, downloaded it, sent it to them. They looked at it, and the next day I had a repairman out here. He was a heating and air man. He had never seen a Harvest Right machine. He had no clue what that was. And he looked at it and just stood there and scratched his head. Well, I called the Harvest Right people. They got on the phone with them. I think it was just a Freon problem. He had to drain all my Freon. He filled it back up. He did his thing, walked away, and they paid the price for it. That's what the gentleman on the said to the repairman. He was concerned about, the money, and the man told him, you do what it takes to fix the machine. There was no issues. These people really, I was just impressed. I was very impressed. It was no fighting, no arguing, no felt like I was going to have an issue with it. Not only that, since this machine had messed up 6 months into my 1-year warranty, he told me that if there was problems over a year, that not to worry about it, it would be taken care of. So, I mean, you really can't ask for better than that from any company.
They're a small.
I'd like to.
Go ahead.
I'd kind of like to add to that because I've had my machine for quite a while. I almost didn't buy it because there were so many negative reviews about their service. And to be perfectly honest, 4 years ago, their service was not what it is now. And I would say some of those complaints were actually valid, and I did have some issues 4 years ago. Since then, things have gotten amazing. I think they've really addressed that. As I said, I have a 4-year-old machine. I have a machine that is used, and I didn't even buy from them, and they've replaced parts on them at this late date for free. They've replaced a pump for me for free on a 4-year-old machine. But if you do go and read some of the complaints, you'll see most of them are from quite a long time ago.
The other thing I want to point out is, so I have a close relationship with them, and they support the page that I'm on. I don't make any money from them. I want to be clear about that. But I have a direct line to them if one of our members is having problems. And the amount of problems that they see has dropped drastically because, like you said, they've gotten a better machine and better support. This is a small, family-owned American business, which I love. They support our troops. They give discounts for military. I'm retired military. They go above and beyond. I've never seen customer care like this, and that's why I started the page, was to share information with other people, and I'm so impressed with what they do. They care about the customer, something that we don't see anymore in this country, sadly. The product has gotten better, and here's the thing. A lot of the problems that they get, return pumps and stuff, there's nothing wrong with the pump. It's operator error. It's somebody who didn't clean out the pump like they were supposed to, or didn't quite understand. And Harvest Right stands behind their product. Even if it wasn't really broke, they're still going to send you one back and support you 100%. So most problems I've seen were operator error, including myself. I made some mistakes at first.
Yeah. Everybody's probably going to make a mistake or 10 over the course of owning stuff. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think needs to be put out there for everybody? We kind of covered the electrical usage and the cost versus, with your batch of soup, the size differences. What else is there out there that people should know? How loud are they?
They're pretty loud. I mean, the dry pump has gotten much quieter. I don't even pay attention to it now. The new oil pump is a little bit quieter. I wouldn't want it in my kitchen.
Okay.
Everything
Lisa says she has a freeze drying room. It must be like her utility room or something.
Mine's in the utility room.
Mine's in my utility room also.
Yeah.
Mine's in a shop
it's
outside.
far, but it's not too far.
Well, I have a nice insulated garage, and I'm hopefully going to be heating it soonish. So maybe if I get one, it'll go out there. That would be probably the best spot for it. I'd actually like to stick a canning kitchen out there someday. What else is there that we should maybe cover for everybody?
I don't have the oil-less pump. I have an old oil pump and a new oil pump. The new one's much better than the old one, but they're still messy. Don't put it over a carpet. If you're going to get an oil pump, there are definitely ways to make your filtering easier, cleaner, more efficient, but it's still going to be messy. So pick your location.
Okay.
I guess I want to. People talk about buying freeze drying food. People talk about putting back canned food, not their own, but the store bought. Be careful. When we first started putting food aside, people tell you that can of green beans going to last 10, 20 years. They really don't. You know, you open up an old can of green beans, and if the zombies were attacking, I'd probably eat it. But it's hard to rotate canned food well enough that you're not going to end up losing food.
You would have to be on top of it.
Yes,
so.
You have to. And the freeze dry, just there it is, and it's. And they talk about buying some of the freeze dried companies that are selling, and I'm not saying they're a bad thing. If that's what you can afford, go for it. But if you don't want chemicals in your food and you want to control, especially if you got someone in the house who can't have salt or whatever, you get to control what goes in your food. The other thing is, if you're in a high stress environment, I don't want to open up somebody else's freeze-dried beef stroganoff. I want to open up mine because my family is used to that, and it would lower our stress level to eat like we've always eaten.
Oh, yeah. Good old comfort food.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Anything else, you think?
Well, let's talk real fast about the taste of it.
Okay,
I have not, to this point, have been disappointed in anything I have freeze-dried. I mean, it's not like dehydrating something where you're slowly cooking it. This is almost like, like a flash freeze. Your taste is there. It does not take the taste away from anything that I have processed yet. Ladies, have you noticed any taste difference in anything? If anything, like, say the watermelon. I did watermelon and cantaloupe. It was maybe a little more concentrate. It was more watermelon-y because the water was gone. So if anything, it might have just a little stronger taste than what it was. Ladies, what do you think?
Agree. And there's also less nutritional loss. So the food you're eating that's freeze-dried, when you reconstitute it 25 years later, still has like 98% of its nutritional value. Nothing in a can can compete with that.
Speaking of 25 years later, and I'm not quite old enough to worry about this yet, but not too far around the corner, think of it as part of your retirement.
Yep.
If every year you put away a year's worth of food, you retire at, unfortunately, 70, you've got all the food you need until you die,
Not for
this is kind of my husband's retirement. I mean, and not only that, I have 2 grown children who are already fighting over, now, who gets the food when you and Dad are gone? Well, now, wait a minute.
That's nice.
Wait, son. I mean, they're not worried about the house. They're worried about my food, and...
Well, it's Mom's food. I would. My mom passed away 3 years ago. I would kill for her graham cracker pie right now. And her lasagna.
Well,
when my son was in the military, we would send him freeze-dried food when he was deployed. And he said,
I bet you he was popular.
Yeah, oh yeah, those silver bags would show up, and so a taste of home is invaluable.
Hmm. Okay. So I'm gonna be out here on a wire here. I'm guessing you would suggest it's a good purchase for everybody, right? Who are going to stick with it, obviously. Someone who's really do some research, make sure it's something that they want, make sure it's something they can, right?
I go a step farther. If you're preparing for tomorrow, for what may come, you would be foolish not to do this. It's changed how we prep our food completely.
Okay.
No more worrying about it.
Go ahead.
No more worrying about it. I know it's there. It adds up quickly. It's nutritious. I don't want to spend the rest of my life eating beans. I even freeze dry my beans because they rehydrate really quick. So best bang for your buck long term for prepping your food for the future you'll ever do.
Okay, cool.
I would say if you're already bothering to can your food or dehydrate your food, this is easier. So to me it's a no-brainer. If you've already invested the amount of time it takes in a hot kitchen over boiling water or pressure canner, you will definitely stick with this.
Oh, and another thing about freeze drying that I think is really important is in canning. If you're a safe canner, you don't can cheese, you don't can cream of soups. I know there are people who do it. There are no limits on what you can freeze dry except for butter. Butter and booze you can't do, which breaks my heart. But, but I have lots more room to put the butter away in the freezer now, and the booze, well, I take care of that too.
But you can make your own booze.
You can cream a mushroom soup, cream it, all the stuff you're not allowed to can, you can freeze dry it.
That's actually what made me really pushed me over the edge. I mean, I can't tell you how big of a milk drinker I am. Milk and water. Well, I have a pump outside. My water's taken care of. I do not own a cow. I can't imagine me getting a cow at this point. But it was the dairy products. Like you said, I couldn't can those. I couldn't can milk or not safely to where I felt comfortable with it. So that was really what pushed me over the edge. I mean, now I have milk, I have yogurt, I have cheeses, cottage cheese.
Sour cream.
Yeah. It was really the dairy that did it for me.
And any of your soups or casseroles with noodles or rice or anything like that, you can't really safely can.
The other thing is I'm no longer afraid of zucchini. Used to be when I would go into my garden and find that 2-foot long zucchini and try and leave it on my neighbor's doorstep. Open cars that I would
the
find.
Same thing I did.
Absolutely, the cars open, I'm filling it full of zucchini. Now I go, yay, zucchini, and I shred it or I cut it or whatever, and I freeze dry it. So there's so many advantages to this, and I truly cannot think of one disadvantage.
No. I was gonna ask this earlier, but I forgot. I talked about it. I thought about it all day, and you kind of answered it already. What is it? Strictly butter and booze is about the only thing you can't do?
Anything with high oil content, like a salad dressing or mayonnaise or that kind of stuff, you can't freeze dry.
Okay.
How about jellies and things like that? I don't believe that works.
No, jellies don't work because they're too high sugar. They're really high in sugar, and they kind of turn into like a mutant in the machine. It's been some terrifying pictures of people who tried jelly. It was like the blob.
Okay.
You can do candy. You can do milk duds.
Oh,
they turn into this.
How about whatchamacallits? 100 grand bars? That'd be sick.
Well, things with a lot of chocolate. Chocolate doesn't work. But for the milk duds, what will happen is the milk dud turns into this. It gets huge. So don't put a lot on the tray if you try it. They get really big, but they're light and airy. And when you first take them out, they're kind of melty, so you got to let them sit for a little bit. But your brain goes, what is this? It's like a cookie. Same thing with ice cream sandwiches, and you go, what is this? There's no flavor. But the second your saliva engages with the food, you go, wait a minute, crunchy, but it's a milk dud. This is wrong. This is so bizarre. So there's a lot of you can have a lot of fun with them too.
Can you do? You talked about jellies, but can you do like a pie?
Cream pies, if you cut them in
Okay.
small slices, you can do cheesecake. You can do pound cake. I did strawberry shortcake in mine. Strawberries and pound cake.
It's worth buying the machine just to do the cheesecake.
Cheesecake's pretty awesome. Turns into like cheesecake biscotti.
Huh. But you couldn't do like a fruit pie.
Too much sugar.
Yeah, too much sugar.
Okay.
But you can freeze dry the fruit and make a pie. I've done that with apples.
Yeah. What about something like I'm going out there kind of looking for things. Something like we've talked about casseroles and all that kind of stuff. And then that's just kind of I make we make homemade pot pies every once.
I do pot
not
pie.
Too often. But that would.
Yep, absolutely you can.
Okay. Like a minute, even just a big one or a miniature one.
You cut it up. You can't go to with
Like
freeze-dried,
individual?
smaller is better.
Okay.
Yeah, you cut it up and it kind of looks like a casserole when you're done, but it still tastes the same. You just mix it all together and then my freeze dryer people that are going to listen to this are going to laugh because I'm going to tell you it's mandatory you pick the peas out because peas are evil.
Did you see that pea and mayonnaise pizza thing going around? That's
no,
gross.
no.
That's disgusting.
Peas are
Anyway.
running hell. I can't handle them.
Okay. Well, I think. Do you think we've covered it well enough to answer people's questions? For me, it's. I was reading the questions during the week, and I've done my research prior to this a little bit, and I was a member of the freeze drying page, and then it wasn't there an issue with the page, and then it went away and came back. And,
Not my page.
maybe that was another one.
I know there's a couple of them.
Okay.
They're all lovely. Ours is better.
Do you think is there anything else we should cover? Obviously, if people have questions, they can go join your page and ask away. And you can go ahead and plug it again if you want.
Freeze drying adventures.
Okay.
Or feel free to send me a message. Well, let's just freeze drying adventures. You'll see me on there. And
Okay.
ladies, I'd like to invite you guys both to the page so you can help share stuff too.
And are you like on?
I will be joining right up.
Are you? Is it just Facebook, or do you have like MeWe or Instagram or anything like
For
that?
now, I've just started here, but we're eventually going out to a blog, and I'm also writing a freeze drying cookbook.
Okay.
Recipes and how to specifically rehydrate. We've started with a lot of videos on the page so you can see people rehydrating the food to get a better feel for how it's done.
Okay. Cool.
We're actually doing a lot of testing so I can say to you, here's the chili, here's a recipe, or use yours, and here's how much water you need and that kind of stuff. Hints for rehydrating, hints for how things work and don't work.
Okay.
That's actually really interesting because when you give freeze-dried food as gifts to people who aren't used to doing it, they have no idea how to add the water. So that cookbook sounds like a really interesting idea.
I've been working on it for about 6 months now.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up then. Thanks for listening. Make sure you check us out on 21st Century Prepper on Facebook, MeWe, Instagram, Pinterest. Pinterest is a big one. Is the freeze drying page on Pinterest?
No, not yet. We're just, like I said, we're small and we got about 12,000 members. We're
Get on
growing.
Pinterest. I've got more people. Our podcast on the podcast page is listened to by like 25 people. On Pinterest, it's listened to by like 400 and some people. So, yeah, Pinterest. We're not on Reddit. I know that one. I can't remember the other ones we're on. It's so much stuff I've forgotten what it is. So,
I've never been on Pinterest, I have to tell you. I don't even know how to get on Pinterest.
oh, then don't, because we won't hear from you until Tuesday next week. So, okay. Well, thanks for joining us, ladies. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming over.
Thank
I know
you.
it was a little odd, just doing it the first time is kind of intimidating, but it's not too bad, is it?
I've had fun.
Oh, it was fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening.